incredible finish here to the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona. Mika Hakkinen looked to have the race in the bag, and then along came Schumacher on the very last lap to win again in Spain. Okay, confirmation of the result for you. First of all, Michael Schumacher, 10 out of 10. Juan Pablo Montoya, the Colombian, up there on the podium for the first time in the Williams. Villeneuve, an excellent result for the British-American racing team. 4 points for third place there. Trulli did a spot of powerboat racing with him before the race, didn't we? In fourth place, David Coulthard, a really brave drive from Coulthard, starting right at the back of the grid, but still getting a couple of championship points. And Sauber continuing to do pretty well this season. Nick Heidfeld making his point. And this is how it looks now. There's a gap. It was level pegging at the top. It is now 8 points, the gap between David Coulthard and the reigning world champion Michael Schumacher. Rubens Barrichello staying third. Ralf Schumacher, a non-scorer today, in fourth. Heidfeld improving a little bit with 8 points, and Jarno Trulli 7 for Jordan now. And with 5 rounds gone, it's the half century up for Ferrari. 50 points, well clear of McLaren. Williams edging out Jordan for that third place. Sauber are fifth and BAR Honda sixth. You've rushed up to see us, Martin. Take a deep breath and just sort of give us your thoughts about the finish. I can remember Damon Hill, something happened to him similar, didn't it, in the Hungaroring, where he blew up and Villeneuve went past him. But this, to me, the most dramatic finish we've seen.
I know, it can always happen, though, and until you've crossed the line, of course, you haven't scored any points whatsoever, and we've all had it in our careers. And thinking about why Mika may not have been so upset is that, you know, from time to time it does happen. Every lap counts at the Grand Prix. Quite clearly, some kind of, I would suspect, hydraulic problem at the back end of the car there, and he just couldn't coax it back to the pits.
I was away from Mika Hakkinen. We're obviously going to talk more about him before we leave. David Coulthard had a terrible day, didn't he? Had the problems in warm-up, then right at the back of the grid, but he has come through, he's battled through and scored points.
He's had every kind of test, hasn't he? Mechanical, psychological, you know, he's had a nerve, and we didn't see at the beginning, but this was this morning with the hydraulics going and everything frying up. Of course, we thought the worst at this time was he parked at the end of the pit lane, that perhaps that was the engine, but it was all the hydraulics and the fluid had gone out, and then they had to recheck the engine. But here we are to go out for the formation lap, and something's happened again, and it stopped and it stalled, and we saw all the electronics engineers, and there he is having to go right at the back and start from the back. Luckily for him, not having to go over to the pit lane, but there he's lost his nose cone. And suspicion was against Bonaldi because he came in as well. So he had to come in and have the nose cone fitted, which is a long job. And you have to be very precise with the mechanics to get the thing back on. And he's got 2 very valuable World Championship points. And he's still just 8 points behind Michael Schumacher. So that, as Murray said, that could be very, very important come the tally at the end of the year.
It's an interesting scenario, isn't it, within that team, and we've been saying perhaps David Coulthard is number one, Hakkinen has been number one, but there's still terrific camaraderie between the two of them, Martin.
There's a respect out of the car, but in the car, your first point of reference is your teammate, of course. I think David will think he lost 8 points today, not gained 2. I don't know whether he made a mistake and stalled the engine or whether there was a technical problem. Very reminiscent, of course, of the Canadian grid last year. And it just puts you out of sync for the afternoon. What really cost him, though, he still could have won the race, of course, as it turned out, with all of the other problems, but losing the nose cone effectively then really cost him 10 points today.
Yeah, and at the end, Tony, Mika had to sort of thumb a lift back, didn't he? I'm just wondering what it will do to him inside there, because people said this is the race he's going to hit back at.
I don't think it will do anything to him at all, because he feels more confident about the car. He knows it was a mechanical fault, but you have to look towards the end of qualifying. They made the car better all the time. Okay, so it's a track where he's won 3 races on the trot here, but he will be strong now.
Okay, well, let's hear what Mika Hakkinen himself has got to say about his awful experience here. Here he is, chatting to James.
Very, very quickly, I've got to ask you, you must be absolutely mortified by that. You've been in racing a long time, but the last lap, 3 miles to go, how do you feel?
Yeah, definitely. It's super disappointing. I mean, God damn it, you know. Jesus, you know. Could could be fantastic finish for me here. You know, it was going so easy, and I didn't even have to push. I was just more or less cruising. You know, short shifting, braking early, accelerating gently, but it just didn't work out this time for me over here. You know, but it would have been incredible if I would have won this race for 4th time in a row. But it's all right. It's all right.
Good for him for giving us his reactions there 4 times in a row. It would have made Mika Hakkinen the most successful driver in the history of the Spanish Grand Prix. Let's hear from Ron Dennis, shall we? Team boss of McLaren. Victory snatched from his team's grasp.
Ron, unbelievable drama on the last lap. My heart goes out to you and to Mika, of course. Any idea what happened?
Well, as far as we can tell at the moment, and it's a little early, but it looks like we had a clutch failure, but we're not 100% sure.
What went through your head when you saw Mika slowing down? I mean, was it expected at all?
No, it was without warning. What goes through your head at that time is how many times it's happened before. You know, if you've been in it a few years, and I'm afraid I have, you know, it's never won until it's won, and you know, pain will come tomorrow, and a disappointment's there for everybody in the company and the team, and you know, you just have to live with it. Take the positive from it. It was a great race strategy. It was nice to outmaneuver Ferrari, and it was an easy win. But this is motor racing.
David's picked up a couple of points, but again, a bad day for him.
Yes, I mean, I'm afraid it was a bit of brain fade from him on the start line. And again, it's a little premature, but that's as far as we can tell at the moment. But you know, it wasn't one of our greatest days, but you know, we're competitive, and there's a long way to go.
Thanks, Ron.
Well, he's putting a brave face on it, and all credit to him. Thousands of Finnish fans, by the way, have come to Barcelona to support him. They were chanting down that Ramblers late into the night, weren't they? The Mika Hakkinen chant, and they're going to have to be drowning their sorrows now, I guess. It's just that, as I say, it's the mindset of Mika Hakkinen that interests me after this, and Ron Dennis showing there how painful the blow really was for the team.
But it's also the difference between Ron's reaction to Hakkinen and Ron's reaction to David Coulthard. You know, we've said continually here, you know, get behind David Coulthard a little bit more psychologically. You know, Ron says there, you know, a bit of brain fade by him, and then he checked himself and said, well, perhaps it's a bit premature to say that. It could have been electronic glitch easily. You know, he'd had problems with his car from the morning. You know, he'd been on the 2nd row of the grid. I think they should get behind him equally. Not just with the equipment, but up there as well. Come onto his side of the garage every now and again. You always see Ron and Adrian Newey on Hakkinen's side of the grid. He knows he's got all that strong psychological support from them mentally as well as technologically.
Okay, Tony, thank you very much indeed. We hope to be having a word with David Coulthard before we leave you. But now let's go down to the press conference, shall we? Where the top 3 in the Spanish Grand Prix are...
Hang in there.
Well, Martin, he won here in 97. He was the world champion. Seems to change his look, the way he looks. Hair changes, beard changes, but good to see him back up there.
He had a solid drive, didn't he, all day? We didn't mention much about him. It wasn't spectacular. And as Jack magnanimously pointed out, he actually was a bit lucky in a way. He's had better drives than that, better days, and when he could have raced to the podium. But nonetheless, well deserved. They kept the car going. Solid drive from him, and he was keeping Montoya on his toes as well.
Juan Pablo Montoya. I mean, Ralf Schumacher won for Williams last time out. Montoya on the podium this time. Terrific for them.
He's a great racer. He's not a great qualifier yet. He's got one heck of a lot to learn in that department. But he's got a lot of fans here. His girlfriend's Spanish. You've seen a lot of Colombian flags being waved around. And just at the bottom of the podium there was his father looking up and sort of giving him the big applause. I mean, so it's a big moment for him. He's concealing a lot there. But to go from 0 to suddenly get 6 points is amazing, because he was actually a bit fed up after Imola, because before qualifying he'd only done 4 laps in the dry. And then suddenly, you know, he was chucked into the race. So, great racer.
Not using traction control?
Well, you know,
Well,
what happened, well, he said that he used launch control on the start. You know, there's all sorts of different systems and there's different ways of achieving it. But what BMW were very worried about was blowing up engines as they did on Friday. And that unit was immediately sent back to Munich to be checked out. They were so worried about detonating them today because of traction control. So it takes everything to the limit.
OK, Tony, thank you very much indeed. We're still hoping that David Coulthard will talk to us before we leave you. There is that competition to come as well. We will be right back. live at the Catalunya circuit close to Barcelona. David Coulthard had to start right from the back of the grid here. He battled through the field and got a couple of points. Absolutely delighted that he's joining us this afternoon. Well, David, quite a race for you, really. Do you see it as points gained or points lost?
Well, obviously it's points gained in this situation. At the start, I went about initiating the launch control for the green flag lap in a slightly different way, but nonetheless we're still trying to understand exactly why the engine stalled, because with the new software, there's all sorts of things that are supposed to allow the engine to cut out. So we're obviously a bit confused about that. And then obviously I got involved in the first corner. I got hit from the rear and then hit a car in front, and it was just turning into my worst nightmare. And when I saw Mika leading and I got into 6th place, I thought this is a great afternoon considering. And then obviously very disappointed for him not to get the win.
Your team boss Ron Dennis talked about the possibility you might have had a bit of brain fade, David. Is that fair?
Well, I think it's fair to say that Ron's probably had brain fade to make that comment without talking to me or the engineers first.
Okay, when you tried to battle your way through the field, just give us your feelings about getting near to scoring a point here in Barcelona. I mean, how confident were you throughout the race that you were going to score?
Well, from being at the very back and having to pit for a new nose, I thought I had very little chance at all of scoring points in this track. But I just wanted to use it, if not as a way to score points, but as a way to really test the system and push myself. And I tried to do that the whole race, and thankfully I was able to get some points.
Ferrari have said it is their lucky day today. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think this was Mika's day. He's always been very fast around this track. He deserved the victory, and I think the team did, so I'm very disappointed for them.
A thought for you about your teammate Mika Hakkinen and what happened to him today, David?
Well, obviously they're trying to understand. I believe it was something to do with the clutch rather than the engine, as was maybe first suspected. So they're trying to understand exactly what happened there. It might be a result of traction control. It could well just be one of those things. So obviously I didn't have that problem with my car. Okay,
before you go, as you say, north of the border, Martin Brundle's in the studio. I'm sure he'd want to have a quick word with you, Martin.
Hi, DC. Looking ahead, because that's all you can do after today. Clearly, you've got Austria coming up, and then Monte Carlo. Some circuits you're very strong on. Manicourt, you dropped 8 points behind Michael Schumacher now. Do you think it's a turning point of the season, or do you think it's just a blip?
No, I think it's very interesting, the fact that Michael, for whatever reason, wasn't very strong in the race, and this would have been a race that Mika should have won. Once we try and understand exactly what happened with our system, then clearly it could have been a race where it was another McLaren 1-2. So I really don't think that just because they've locked into this victory, it changes the season. It drops me back from him, and obviously you can't rely on him not finishing another Grand Prix. But that's the racing season. We'll learn from it as a team, and I obviously learned a lot today in coming through the field. Yeah,
Michael had tyre vibration problems. I mean, I was lauding him for being so smart on keeping new tyres available for the race, but of course that's one of the downsides. You've never run those tyres, whether it turned on the rim or whether he lost some weight, but he was losing 7 seconds a lap. I couldn't really understand why he needed to back off so much with tyre vibration. Have you any idea?
No, I'd be surprised if tyre vibration, as you're well aware, might lose a second a lap just from visibility, but otherwise there's no risk involved with that. I think that what I heard was Rubens had a problem with the rear suspension, so maybe they were worried about something similar in his car and felt they had enough in hand to still finish second. And then obviously with Mika's problem, they've taken the 10 points.
You might not be able to see it down there, David. We've got a great bit of action from you, overtaking Nick Heidfeld right at the end and securing your points. Just give us your feelings about that manoeuvre.
Well, I was trying to set him up to make him slow through turn 12 and 13 so I could get the run on him. And thankfully, Benetton was in a situation that I saw Nick panic a little bit, try to carry too much speed into turn 13, and that gave me the opportunity. What he should have done was held me up out of turn 11 and got the run on the Benetton down the straight, but thankfully he didn't, and I got the opportunity to overtake.
Tough day for you, David. We appreciate you joining us and really giving us a terrific insight into your performance at the Spanish Grand Prix. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, Tony, let's have a look at a couple of the other instances in the race, shall we? Heinz-Harald Frentzen giving De La Rosa the old Spanish archer elbow.
I wondered if you were going to get that one in. Heinz-Harald Frentzen there, I mean, they both had different views, and we heard about them during the program earlier on. I don't think that De La Rosa had much of a chance of getting out of the way. But look at it here. He hasn't seen him, or perhaps he hasn't looked properly in his mirrors, but it is Frentzen's corner, it's Frentzen's place. He's well ahead of there, so if you say it's anyone's to blame, I'm afraid it's Pedro, and it's a shame for him on his return to Grand Prix racing after 34 starts.
They were all quite relaxed, both quite relaxed. There was no one really pointing at the other one.
No, I think they said a racing incident, but I still maintain. I mean, Heinz Harald just lost control of his car a bit, but it was a legitimate move, and Pedro should have given him more space. But as he clearly pointed out on ITV, he just didn't know he was there, basically.
What did you make of Ralf Schumacher going off? Was this the old Ralf resurfacing?
No, not at all. But I think, as David just elegantly pointed out, you can't really point a finger at the drivers until you've got the data and find out. That looked to me like a driving error. It's a tricky part of the racetrack. We saw several cars getting out of shape going into that corner, and I would hazard a guess it was a driving error, but no doubt they'll be having a good look at the data.
I would say, actually, Martin, that's probably him thinking about being a father for the first time, which he found out a few days ago. Something's gone up there, hasn't it? Absolutely,
and getting engaged as well. Rubens Barrichello was running for quite a while in the first three. And, I mean, did the Ferrari mechanics not spot what was wrong with him? Was that the problem?
Well, as Martin pointed out, I found that very, very strange myself, because, you know, you could see the car, the front end of the car pointing up to the heavens, and there as it runs wide. Now, damage to the suspension may have occurred in there. There it is. There's the left front poking up into the air. But he's talking on the radio all the time, and they should have been watching the screens in the garage. They changed the wheel, they sent him out. Clearly wasn't going to go any further, and he came back in and retired. But I think there's something in this, as Martin was saying, more than just the vibration. I think they were worried about suspension. It could have been from heat. You know, it could have been from traction control. So much more vibration from traction control systems as well.
Okay, just sum it all up for us finally, Martin, you.
Well, thrilling race can sometimes be a bit tedious here, can't it? But it was a cat and mouse in the beginning. Both drivers, really. I mean, Hakkinen put a stint in, and we just at a crucial moment, it was Michael who started to fade away. We didn't spot it at first, and I'm still confused about his vibration problems. Why didn't he call in for a new set of tyres? He had best part of a minute in hand over Montoya behind him, so a bit surprised at that one. They ran a lot of heat. It was a suspension problem that gave him the problem in Imola as well for Michael Schumacher, so a bit of a problem there showing up for Ferrari.
Thanks, Martin. Now our competition. We're combining top-class European football with a visit to the Monaco Grand Prix. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to attend two of the world's greatest sporting events. The UEFA Champions League final, then the Monaco Grand Prix. It all starts on the 23rd of May with the climax of the European season at Milan's San Siro Stadium. Then on to Monte Carlo for the weekend with full hospitality for qualifying and the race. And two lucky winners will get a pair of tickets to both. What a week it's going to be. All you have to do is answer this simple question. Who was the last Englishman to win the Monaco Grand Prix? Was it A, Johnny Herbert, B, Nigel Mansell, or C, Graham Hill? A, Herbert, B, Mansell, C, Graham Hill. The number to call, 09065 811 811. 09065 811 811. These great prizes, by the way, courtesy of Foster's, sponsors of our ITV F1 website, and the very best of luck to you all. It's here in Spain in our highlight show tonight, just after midnight. It's repeated as always, ITV2, 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Next stop for us is Austria on FA Cup final day. Qualifying just before midday, the build-up to the race starting at 12:30 on the Sunday, and the highlights for you, as always, just before midnight on the Sunday evening. Well, there we are then. Michael Schumacher wins. With 188 miles gone, it looked as though Mika Hakkinen was going to win here again. Ferrari accept. This was their lucky day. From the whole team, bye-bye.
If you'd like to know more about